Vincent Mercer had always believed in patterns. Wake at 5:30 a.m., gym by 6 o'clock, office by 7:15. His life moved like clockwork, and he preferred it that way. At 45, he'd built Mercer Digital Solutions from a small startup into one of Seattle's most respected tech consulting firms. His corner office overlooked Elliott Bay, where ferries glided across steel gray water like pieces on a chessboard. This particular Wednesday morning felt different. He couldn't identify why. The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor, and he stepped into the reception area where morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything looked normal. The coffee machine hummed in the break room. Keyboards clicked softly from various cubicles. But something essential was missing. Claire's desk sat empty. The desk that held everything together for 7 years. Claire Hartman had occupied that space beside the executive hallway. Not flashy, not loud, just present. Her desk always held 3 things: a small, succulent plant she watered every Monday, a blue ceramic mug with a chip on the handle, and a leather-bound planner that contained the detailed architecture of Vincent's entire professional life. Vincent paused, briefcase in hand, staring at the vacant chair. Claire arrived at 7 a.m. every single day. Not 7:05, not 6:55. 7 o'clock exactly. In 7 years, she had called in sick exactly 4 times. She had never, not once, been late without warning. He glanced at his watch. 7:17 a.m., walking into his office. Vincent set down his briefcase and opened his laptop. His inbox loaded with the usual overnight messages from international clients, industry newsletters, and internal memos. Then he saw it. An email sent at 11:43 p.m. the previous night. Subject: Resignation notice. Claire Hartman. His finger hovered over the touchpad. Something cold settled in his chest. A feeling he couldn't name. He clicked. The email that changed everything. Dear Mr. Mercer, please accept this letter as my formal resignation from the position of executive assistant, effective 2 weeks from today. I have appreciated the opportunity to work with Mercer Digital Solutions and wish the company continued success. I will ensure all transitions are handled smoothly. Best regards, Claire Hartman. Vincent read it 3 times. The words were professional, courteous, and completely devoid of warmth. No explanation, no reason. Just a clean surgical exit. He sat back in his leather chair, the one Claire had ordered after noticing him rubbing his lower back during long meetings. She had researched ergonomic designs for 2 weeks, comparing models and reading reviews, then presented him with 3 options, each with detailed pros and cons. He had picked one without really looking, trusting her judgment. When had that been? 3 years ago? 4? The day without her shadow by 9 a.m.? Vincent had attended a conference call with a client in Singapore. He forgot to mute himself while typing and had to apologize twice. At 10:30, he missed a meeting with the design team because it wasn't flagged in his calendar. Rachel from HR called at 11:15 asking about a document he was supposed to review. He had no idea what she was talking about. Claire usually handles that, he said automatically. There was a pause on the other end. Sir, Claire resigned last night. Did you not see her email? I saw it, Vincent replied, his voice sharper than intended. Forward me the document again. After hanging up, he stood and walked to his window. The bay stretched out before him, dotted with sailboats and cargo ships. He had stood in this exact spot thousands of times, usually while Claire briefed him on afternoon schedules or handed him coffee prepared exactly how he liked it, black, 2 ice cubes. In a ceramic mug, because paper cups made it taste like cardboard. He had never asked her how she knew that. The missing pieces lunch came and went. Vincent ate a sandwich at his desk, something he ordered through an app. It tasted like nothing. Claire used to bring him lunch on Thursdays. Always something different. Thai curry, Mediterranean wraps, Vietnamese pho. She never asked if he wanted it. She just placed it on his desk with a napkin and a fork, then returned to her work. He had never thanked her properly. Maybe a quick nod. Maybe nothing at all. By 3 p.m., Tom Chen, the CFO, stopped by his office. Tom was practical. numbers-focused, not given to emotional conversations. But even he seemed concerned. "Did Claire really quit?" Tom asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Apparently," Vincent said, not looking up from his screen. "That's strange. She seemed happy here. Did something happen?" Vincent finally met his eyes. Why would something have happened? Tom shrugged. "People don't leave good jobs without reason, Vincent. Especially not people like Claire. She was loyal to a fault." After Tom left, Vincent found himself staring at Claire's empty desk again through his glass wall. Loyal to a fault. The phrase echoed in his mind, and for the first time, he wondered what that loyalty had cost her. The discovery at 6 p.m. The office had emptied except for a few engineers working late in the back. Vincent should have left an hour ago, but he couldn't make himself move. Instead, he walked out of his office and approached Claire's desk. It felt wrong, invasive somehow, but he opened the top drawer. Inside were the usual items: pens, sticky notes, a pack of mints, a small bottle of hand lotion. The second drawer held file folders, each labeled in her neat handwriting. Meeting notes, expense reports, vendor contacts. The bottom drawer was different. It held personal items: a spare cardigan, a small makeup bag, a paperback novel with a bookmark halfway through, and a framed photograph he had never noticed before. Vincent picked up the photo. It showed Claire standing beside an older woman in a hospital room. Both were smiling, but the older woman looked frail, her head wrapped in a colorful scarf. Claire's mother, he realized. He had never asked about her family, had never asked about anything beyond work. Beneath the photo was a small journal, the kind with an elastic band holding it closed. Vincent knew he shouldn't open it. This was private, personal, none of his business. He opened it anyway. The first entry was dated 3 years earlier. The handwriting was unmistakably Claire's, precise and slightly slanted. Another long day. Vincent stayed until 9 p.m. working on the Henderson proposal. "I ordered him dinner and made sure he had clean copies for tomorrow's presentation." He said, "Thank you," without looking up. "Some days I wonder if he actually sees me, or if I'm just another piece of furniture in this office. But I stayed anyway. Someone has to make sure he eats." Vincent closed the journal quickly, as if it had burned him. His hands were shaking. The truth he couldn't face, he sat down in Claire's chair, the journal resting on his lap. Outside, the Seattle skyline began to glow with evening lights. Ferries moved across the darkening water, carrying people home to families. Two lives that existed beyond spreadsheets and conference calls. For 7 years, Claire Hartman had organized his world. She had anticipated his needs, protected his time, smoothed his rough edges with clients and staff. She had worked late when he worked late. She had skipped lunches when deadlines were tight. She had learned his preferences, his moods, his unspoken expectations, and he had never once asked her how she was doing. Vincent looked at the photograph again. Claire's smile in that hospital room was brave. The kind of smile people wear when everything is falling apart, but they refuse to let it show. How long had her mother been sick? Months? Years? Had Claire mentioned it, and he simply hadn't been listening? The weight of his own blindness settled over him like a heavy coat. He had prided himself on being observant in business, on reading market trends and client needs. But he had completely failed to see the person who made all of that possible. The silence that followed Vincent returned to his office and sat in the dark. He didn't turn on the lights. He didn't check his email. He simply sat there, staring at nothing, feeling the absence of someone he had never properly appreciated. His phone buzzed. A text from his younger brother David. "Dinner on Friday?" "Haven't seen you in weeks," Vincent typed back. "I'll let you know," but he already knew he would cancel. He always did. Work came first. It always had. That was how he had built this company, how he had achieved success. By focusing, by eliminating distractions, by maintaining professional boundaries, except Claire had never been a distraction. She had been the foundation, and now she was gone. Thursday morning arrived with rain. Seattle's typical gray sky wept against the windows of Mercer Digital Solutions, and Vincent stood in his kitchen watching water streak down the glass. He had barely slept, Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that photograph of Claire and her mother, saw the words in her journal. Some days I wonder if he actually sees me. He arrived at the office at 7:15, as always. The building felt hollow. Rachel from HR had left a note on his desk about interviewing candidates for Claire's replacement. The word replacement made his stomach turn. As if 7 years of dedication could be replaced with a resume and a handshake. Vincent crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. The temporary solution by 10 a.m. A young woman named Jennifer appeared at his door. She was from the temp agency, sent to help with administrative tasks during the transition. She was polite, efficient, and eager to please. She was also completely wrong. "Mr. Mercer, I have your messages printed out," Jennifer said, handing him a stack of papers. Vincent stared at them. "I don't need them printed. Claire always forwarded them digitally with priority flags. Oh, I can do that instead. Should I use a specific system?" He rubbed his temples. "Never mind. Just hold all calls except from Tom Chen or the Singapore office." Jennifer nodded and left. 5 minutes later, she transferred a call from a sales vendor. 10 minutes after that, she interrupted a video conference to ask about lunch preferences. By noon, Vincent had developed a headache that no amount of coffee could cure. Claire had never asked these questions. She had simply known. 7 years of knowing, of learning, paying attention to details that nobody else noticed. The journal's hidden pages that evening. Vincent found himself back at Claire's desk. The journal sat where he had left it, a small rectangle of guilt and curiosity. He knew reading it was wrong, but he needed to understand. Needed to know what he had missed. He opened to a random page dated 8 months earlier. Vincent's ex-wife called today. 3rd time this month. She wants to meet about selling their old lake house. He told me to tell her he's too busy. I heard the sadness in his voice when he said it, but he hung up before I could ask if he was okay. He never talks about personal things. Sometimes I think he's forgotten how. Vincent's throat tightened. His divorce had been finalized 2 years ago. Quiet, professional, like everything else in his life. Rebecca had said he was married to his work, and she was tired of competing with spreadsheets. He had not fought her on it. Fighting required emotional energy he did not know how to access. He turned another page. Made Vincent laugh today. Actually laugh. I made a joke about the coffee machine staging a rebellion, and he smiled, then chuckled. It was brief, but real. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I heard him laugh. Made me sad for the rest of the day. When had that been? Vincent had no memory of it, but Claire had remembered. Claire had cataloged these tiny moments like they mattered, because they did matter. He just had not been present enough to realize it. The phone call that shook everything's Friday afternoon. Vincent's brother David called. Vincent almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him answer. "You've been dodging me for 3 weeks," David said. No greeting, just accusation wrapped in concern. "I've been busy. You're always busy." "Vince, that's your default setting. But Mom mentioned she hasn't heard from you either. What's going on?" Vincent leaned back in his chair. Through his window, the rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming. "My assistant quit." There was a pause. "Claire. The one who's worked for you forever. 7 years, did you fire her?" "No, she resigned." No explanation. David was quiet for a moment. "Did you ever think maybe you were the explanation?" The words hit harder than Vincent expected. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're brilliant at business and terrible at people, Vince. When was the last time you asked Claire about her life? Her family? Anything that wasn't work-related?" Vincent said nothing. "That's what I thought," David continued, his voice softer now. "You know what Rebecca used to say? That talking to you was like talking to a very polite wall. You listen, but you don't hear. You see, but you don't notice." The breaking point? After hanging up, Vincent sat in silence. The office had emptied hours ago. Only the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic 15 floors below kept him company. He thought about Rebecca's words during their last real conversation. "You experience life like you're watching it through a window instead of living it." He had dismissed it as dramatic. Now, sitting alone in an office that suddenly felt too large, He wondered if she had been right. Vincent opened his laptop and pulled up Claire's personnel file. Her home address was listed, an apartment building in the Fremont neighborhood about 20 minutes away. Her emergency contact was listed as Dorothy Hartman, mother. He opened a new browser window and searched the name. After several clicks, he found an obituary dated 6 months earlier. Dorothy Hartman, beloved mother and retired teacher, passed away peacefully after a courageous battle with cancer. She is survived by her daughter, Claire. Vincent's hand froze on the mouse. 6 months ago. Claire's mother had died 6 months ago, and he had not known. Had she taken time off? He could not remember. Had she seemed sad? He had not noticed. He scrolled back through his calendar to that time period. Found a note in Claire's handwriting on a Tuesday in April. V. Working from home today. All urgent items forwarded. We'll check in at noon. That was it. 1 day. She had taken 1 day, then returned as if nothing had happened. And he had not asked why. Had not questioned it. Had simply accepted her efficiency and moved on with his schedule. The confrontation with himself, Vincent stood abruptly, sending his chair rolling backward. He walked to Claire's desk and opened the journal again, this time flipping 2 entries from 6 months ago. Mom passed away last night. Peaceful, at least. I'm grateful for that. I'll work from home tomorrow to handle arrangements, then back to the office Wednesday. Vincent has the board meeting Thursday, and he'll need the presentation materials finalized. I can grieve on my own time. The next entry dated 3 days later, back at the office. Vincent didn't ask about my day off. Part of me is relieved. I don't think I could talk about Mom without falling apart, and I can't fall apart at work. But part of me wishes he had noticed something was different, that I was different. I wore the same black dress 3 days in a row. My eyes were swollen from crying, but he just asked if the Henderson contracts were ready. They were. They always are. Vincent closed the journal and pressed his palms against his eyes. The guilt was physical now, a weight pressing on his chest. He had been so consumed with his own world, his own priorities, that he had missed everything that mattered. The empty apartment Saturday morning. Vincent did something he had never done before. He drove to Fremont and parked outside Claire's apartment building. He did not plan to knock on her door. He just needed to see where she lived, to understand the life she returned to after leaving his office every evening. The building was older, well-maintained but modest. A small coffee shop occupied the ground floor, its windows decorated with hanging plants. Vincent imagined Claire stopping there some mornings, ordering whatever she ordered, talking to the barista who probably knew her name. He knew nothing about her morning. Routine outside of the timestamp on her arrival at work? Did she like mornings? Did she read the news over breakfast? Did she have friends she met for dinner? A partner? Hobbies? 7 years. And he could not answer a single personal question about the person who knew everything about him. His phone buzzed. A text from Tom Chen. Board meeting Monday needs your approval on the quarterly report. Claire usually had this done by now. Should I handle it? Vincent typed back. I'll take care of it. Ow. But he did not move. He sat in his car outside Claire's building, watching strangers come and go, wondering which window was hers. Wondering if she was home. Wondering if she ever thought about him beyond the professional obligations she had left behind. The friend who knew everything on Sunday evening, Vincent made a decision that surprised even himself. He called the office and accessed Claire's emergency contact list again. Below her mother's name was another entry, Sophie Martinez, friend. I found Sophie on social media within minutes. Her profile showed a cheerful woman in her early 30s, a teacher based on her bio. He sent a message, knowing it was inappropriate, knowing he had no right. Ms. Martinez, my name is Vincent Mercer. I'm Claire Hartman's former employer. I know this is unusual, but I need to speak with you about Claire. It's important. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? He expected no response. Instead, his phone pinged 30 minutes later. I know who you are, Mr. Mercer. Claire talked about you often. I can meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. There's a place called Milestone Coffee on 5th Avenue. I'll be there. Monday morning, Vincent arrived at Milestone Coffee 15 minutes early. Sophie was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of her. She was shorter than he expected, with kind eyes and a direct gaze that made him uncomfortable. "You're punctual," Sophie said as he sat down. "Claire said you were obsessive about time." "Did she talk about me often?" Vincent asked, then immediately regretted the question. It sounded pathetic. Sophie studied him for a moment. "Define often." "She mentioned work every day, because work was her life. You were her boss, so yes, your name came up. But if you're asking whether she shared deep feelings about you, the answer is complicated. I'm listening." Sophie took a sip of coffee. "Claire is loyal, sometimes too loyal. She invested 7 years into your company, into making your life run smoothly. She missed family events, postponed vacations, worked late more nights than I can count. And for what? A paycheck? No, because she believed in the work. And because somewhere along the way, she started caring about you as a person. Even though you never gave her much reason to." The words stung because they were true. "When her mom got sick," Sophie continued, "Claire was torn apart. But she only took 1 day off for the funeral because she was worried about leaving you without support. 1 day, Mr. Mercer, to bury her mother. The woman who raised her alone after her father left. And you never even asked her why she needed that day." Vincent's coffee sat untouched, growing cold. "I didn't know, because you didn't ask. That's the problem. Claire's the kind of person who gives everything and asks for nothing. And you're the kind of person who takes everything and notices nothing." The silence between them was heavy with truth. Around them, the coffee shop buzzed with morning conversations, but Vincent heard none of it. He was thinking about Claire sitting at her desk the day after her mother's funeral, organizing his schedule, preparing his presentations, keeping her grief locked away where it would not inconvenience him. The question that mattered, why did she quit? Vincent finally asked. What was the breaking point? Sophie's expression softened slightly. You really don't know? He shook his head. There wasn't one dramatic moment. It was 7 years of small moments, of feeling invisible, of wondering if you saw her as a person or just a function. The final straw was her birthday last month. She worked late because you had a crisis with a client. When she finally left at 9 p.m., she walked past your office and saw you were gone. You had left at 7:30 without saying goodnight. It was a small thing, but it represented everything. She realized she had given you 7 years of her life, and you couldn't even spare 30 seconds to acknowledge her existence on her birthday. Vincent felt something crack inside him. I didn't know it was her birthday. Exactly, Sophie said quietly. You didn't know because you never asked. Claire is done waiting to be seen, Mr. Mercer. She's done being invisible. Vincent returned to his office after meeting Sophie, but he could not focus on anything. The quarterly reports sat untouched on his desk. Emails piled up in his inbox. His phone rang repeatedly, but he let every call go to voicemail. Instead, he sat at his desk and stared at the empty space where Claire used to work. Jennifer, the temp assistant, knocked softly on his door. Mr. Mercer, the board meeting is in 2 hours. Do you need anything prepared? Cancel it, Vincent said, without looking up. Cancel the board meeting? Jennifer's voice rose in surprise. But sir, they've been scheduled for months. Reschedule for next week. Tell them something came up. After Jennifer left, looking confused and worried, Vincent opened his laptop and began typing. Not a business email. Not a strategy document. Letter. To Claire, he wrote for an hour, deleting and rewriting. Damned. Trying to find words that could express what he had failed to say in 7 years. But everything sounded hollow. Apologies felt insufficient. Explanations sounded like excuses. Finally, he closed the laptop and admitted the truth to himself. Words on a screen would not fix this. If he wanted Claire to hear him, he needed to face her directly. The address, he should have known Tuesday morning. Vincent did not go to the office. Instead, he drove back to Fremont, to the apartment building where Claire lived. This time, he did not sit in his car. He walked through the front entrance, climbed 3 flights of stairs because the elevator felt too slow, and stood outside apartment 3C. His hand hovered over the door, hesitating. What if she refused to see him? What if she slammed the door in his face? He would deserve it. But he knocked anyway. 3 soft taps that sounded too loud in the quiet hallway. Footsteps approached. The door opened halfway, and Claire stood there in jeans and a simple gray sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked different outside of the office. Younger somehow. More real. Her expression shifted from surprise to guardedness. "Mr. Mercer, what are you doing here?" "I came to talk," Vincent said, his voice rougher than intended. "May I come in?" Claire hesitated, her hand still on the doorknob. For a moment, Vincent thought she would refuse. Then she stepped back and opened the door wider. 5 minutes. The home that revealed everything Claire's apartment was small, but filled with warmth. Books lined the walls, plants sat on every available surface, and photographs covered a bulletin board near the kitchen. Vincent recognized none of the faces. 7 years of working together, and he had never seen the people who mattered to her. "Would you like coffee?" Claire asked, more out of habit than hospitality. "Oh, thank you. I just need you to listen." Claire crossed her arms and leaned against the kitchen counter. "I'm listening." Vincent had rehearsed this conversation a dozen times during the drive over. But now that he stood in front of her, all his prepared words vanished. He felt like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the only way forward was to jump. "I read your journal," he said finally. "The one you left in your desk. I know I had no right, but I did, and I cannot stop thinking about what I found there." Claire's face paled. "You read my private journal?" "Yes, and I am sorry for invading your privacy. But I am not sorry I read it, because it showed me the truth I was too blind to see on my own." "Which truth would that be?" Her voice was cold now, defensive. "That I treated you like furniture instead of a person? That I took 7 years of your dedication and gave you nothing in return? That I missed your mother's death, your birthday, every single moment that mattered because I was too consumed with my own world to notice yours?" The words that hurt Claire looked away, her jaw tight. When she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. "You want absolution, Mr. Mercer? You want me to tell you it's okay that I understand you were busy? I can't do that. I am not asking for absolution. I am asking for a chance to apologize properly, to acknowledge what I did wrong. You want to know what you did wrong?" Claire turned to face him fully now, and Vincent saw tears gathering in her eyes. "You made me invisible. For 7 years, I organized your life, protected your time, made sure you had everything you needed. I learned how you take your coffee, how you prefer your reports formatted, which clients made you tense, and which ones made you relax. I knew when you had not slept well because you rubbed your left temple more. I knew when you were worried about a deal because you tapped your pen 3 times before signing documents." She paused, wiping her eyes roughly. "I knew everything about you, and you knew nothing about me. Not my favorite color, not where I grew up, not that my mother was dying. Nothing, because I was not a person to you. I was a function. A tool that made your life easier." Vincent felt each word like a physical blow. "You are right. About all of it." "Of course I am right," Claire said, her voice breaking. "Do you know what the worst part was? I kept hoping you would notice. Every day I hoped that maybe you would ask how I was doing, or remember my birthday, or just look at me like I mattered. But you never did. And I finally realized that hope was killing me." The confession he never expected Vincent took a step closer, then stopped when Claire tensed. "I met with Sophie, your friend. She told me about your birthday, about the night you decided to quit." Claire laughed bitterly. "Sophie has been telling me to quit for 2 years. She said I was wasting my life waiting for someone who would never see me. I should have listened sooner. I am grateful you stayed as long as you did, even though I did not deserve it." Gratitude is not enough, Vincent. Use of his first name startled him. She had never called him anything but Mr. Mercer. "I don't want your gratitude. I wanted your respect. Your acknowledgement that I was human, not just an extension of your calendar." Vincent swallowed hard. "You are right, and I have no excuse. I was so focused on building the company, on achieving success, that I forgot what success actually costs. I forgot that people are not resources to be managed. They are individuals with lives and feelings and needs." "Forgot?" Claire shook her head. You did not forget, Vincent. You chose not to see. There is a difference. The truth of that statement settled over the room like heavy fog. Vincent had no argument, no defense. She was absolutely correct. My ex-wife said, "I experience life through a window," Vincent said quietly. "That I watch instead of participate." I thought she was being dramatic, but she was right. My brother said, "I listen, but do not hear." He was right too. And you tried to show me for 7 years that you mattered, and I was too self-absorbed to notice. Claire's expression softened slightly, though the hurt remained in her eyes. "Why are you here, Vincent? What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said, and meant it. "I am not here to ask you to come back. I am not here to make excuses or fix this for my benefit. I am here because you deserved better than silence. You deserved acknowledgement. You deserved to be seen. 7 years too late. I know. But better late than never, right?" He tried to smile, but it felt wrong. "I want you to know that I see you now, Claire. I see how much you sacrificed. I see how much you cared, even when I gave you no reason to. I see that you are extraordinary. And I wasted 7 years of your loyalty because I was too emotionally closed off to appreciate what was right in front of me." Tears spilled down Claire's cheeks now, and she did not bother to hide them. "Do you have any idea how much that hurt? Caring about someone who treated you like you were invisible?" Vincent's chest tightened. Caring about me? The truth she had hidden. Claire laughed through her tears, a sound caught between sadness and relief. "Of course I cared about you. Why do you think I stayed so long? Why do you think I worked late every time you did, made sure you ate, remembered every detail of your preferences? I was not just being a good assistant, Vincent. I was taking care of someone I cared about, someone I hoped might eventually care back." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy and vulnerable. Vincent felt something shift in his chest, a wall he had built years ago beginning to crack. "I did not know," he whispered, "because you never looked. You never asked. You never gave me any indication that you saw me as anything other than the person who scheduled your meetings." Vincent moved closer, slowly, as if approaching something fragile. "I saw you, Claire. I just did not let myself acknowledge what I saw because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of feeling something. Of letting someone matter. My marriage failed because I could not connect emotionally. I built walls to protect myself from that kind of failure again. But in protecting myself, I hurt you. And I am so deeply sorry." Claire wiped her eyes, studying his face. "You hurt me more than you know. But I hurt myself too by staying, by hoping for something that was never going to happen." "Maybe it could happen," Vincent said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "Maybe it is not too late for me to learn how to connect, how to see people, how to see you." The coffee shop where everything changed. Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she grabbed her jacket from a hook by the door. "Come with me." They walked in silence through the streets of Fremont, past shops and cafes, till Claire stopped in front of a small coffee house with ivy growing up its brick exterior. The sign read, "Green Lake Corner Cafe." "This is my place," Claire said, opening the door. "I come here every Saturday morning. I sit by the window and read. Sometimes I write in my journal. Sometimes I just watch people pass by and imagine their stories." Inside, the barista greeted Claire by name. "Your usual Claire? And who is your friend?" "Just coffee, black," Vincent said, then added, "Please." They sat by the window Claire had mentioned, at a small table scarred with years of use. Outside, Seattle moved at its typical pace. People walking dogs and carrying groceries, living lives that Vincent rarely noticed. "I brought you here because this is where I come to feel human," Claire said. "Away from work, away from schedules and obligations. This is where I remember that life is more than productivity and efficiency." Vincent looked around the cafe, really looked. He noticed the mismatched chairs, the local art on the walls, the sound of the espresso machine creating its own rhythm. He noticed the couple in the corner holding hands across the table. He noticed the older man reading a newspaper, his coffee growing cold as he got lost in the words. "I have been living behind glass," Vincent said. "You were right. Everyone was right. I have been watching life instead of living it." The offer that required courage, Claire took a sip of her coffee, leaving a small lipstick mark on the ceramic rim. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I do not know," Vincent admitted. "But I want to learn. I want to be better. Not just as a boss, but as a person." "That is going to take more than good intentions, Vincent. It is going to take actual change. Real effort. I know, and I am willing to try." He paused, gathering courage. "I am not asking you to come back to work, but I am asking if you would be willing to teach me how to be present, how to notice things, how to connect." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You want me to teach you how to be human? When you put it that way, it sounds ridiculous. But yes, I think you are the only person who knows me well enough to help me break through these walls I have built. And what would I get out of this arrangement?" Vincent smiled, a real smile this time. "My genuine effort, my attention, and maybe, eventually, a friendship. A real one, where I actually know things about you beyond your work efficiency." Claire set down her coffee cup and looked at him for a long moment. Vincent held her gaze, resisting the urge to look away, to hide behind his usual professional mask. This was uncomfortable and vulnerable and terrifying, but it was also real. "I will make you a deal," Claire finally said. "Every Saturday morning for the next month, you meet me here at this cafe. Not to talk about work. Not to discuss business. Just to talk like two people getting to know each other. If after a month you still want to continue, we will see where it goes. Just talk. Just talk. About real things. Your childhood, your dreams, your fears, the things you have spent years avoiding." Vincent felt his heart rate increase. Everything in him wanted to refuse, to retreat behind his comfortable walls. But he thought about 7 years of Claire's loyalty, 7 years of her care and dedication that he had taken for granted. She deserved better. And maybe, just maybe, he did too. Every Saturday, he agreed. "Starting this week?" "Starting now," Claire corrected. "We are already here. Tell me something real, Vincent. Something you have never told anyone." The first real conversation, Vincent leaned back in his chair, uncomfortable with the vulnerability being asked of him. But Claire waited patiently, and he realized this was his chance to prove he could change. "I am lonely," he said quietly. "I have been lonely for years, but I convinced myself that success and achievement would fill that emptiness. They never did. I built a company, made money, earned respect in my industry. But at the end of every day, I go home to an empty apartment and eat dinner alone. And I tell myself that is what I want, what I chose. But it is not. I am just too afraid to admit I need people." Claire's expression softened. "That is a good start. Your turn. Tell me something real about you." She smiled slightly. "I have been angry at you for 3 years. Not just frustrated or disappointed, actually angry. Because I could see your potential to be more than just a successful CEO. You could be kind, funny, present, but you chose to hide behind work instead. And that made me angry, because I cared enough to see what you were wasting. I am sorry I wasted it. I know you are. Now you have to prove you mean it." They talked for 2 hours. Vincent learned that Claire had wanted to be a writer when she was younger, that she loved rainy days because they felt cozy, that her mother used to make her cinnamon toast every Sunday morning. Claire learned that Vincent had a younger brother he rarely saw, that he played piano as a child but quit when his father said it was not practical, and that his favorite sound was rain on windows. Small things. Simple things. The kind of details that build connections between human beings. When they finally left the cafe, the afternoon sun had broken through Seattle's typical clouds. They stood on the sidewalk, and for the first time in 7 years, Vincent looked at Claire and truly saw her, not as assistant, not a function of his business, but a person, complex, thoughtful, beautiful in her quiet strength. "Same time next Saturday?" Claire asked. "I will be here." Vincent promised the epilogue. 6 months later, Vincent still arrived at the office at 7:15 a.m. Some habits were too ingrained to break, but now he noticed the receptionist's new haircut. Asked Tom Chen about his daughter's soccer tournament, and remembered birthdays. Claire never returned to work at Mercer Digital Solutions. Instead, she started a consulting business helping small companies develop organizational systems. She was happier, lighter, living life on her own terms. But every Saturday morning, Vincent walked into Green Lake Corner Cafe at exactly 9 a.m., and Claire was always there, sitting by the window with 2 coffees waiting. They talked about books and music, about childhood memories and future dreams, about the messy, complicated beauty of being human. Sometimes they disagreed. Sometimes conversations grew heated, but Vincent never stopped showing up. He never stopped trying, and slowly, over months of Saturday mornings, something grew between them. Not the boss and assistant dynamic they had before. Something new, something equal, something real. One Saturday, as autumn leaves began to fall outside the cafe window, Claire reached across the table and touched Vincent's hand. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "You finally learned how to see people. Not just me, everyone." Vincent turned his hand over, gently holding hers. "I had a good teacher. Someone patient enough to believe I could change even when I did not believe it myself. And here I thought I was just the invisible assistant." "You were never invisible, Claire. I was just blind. But I can see now. And what I see is extraordinary." Claire smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes and filled the space between them with warmth. "Good, because I see you too, Vincent. The real you. And I like what I see." It's outside. Seattle continued its rhythm. Inside that small cafe, 2 people who had spent years being invisible to each other finally learned how to be seen. And in that seeing, they found something neither had expected. They found home.